I just want to share with all of the women that are trying to be better versions of themselves to respect and love these parts of our body, right? We make jokes our whole lives from puberty on about what a pain menstrual cycles are, pregnancy, it's so painful, or maybe I don't want to get pregnant. Why did I have to go through this? And I think that it's important to appreciate this unique piece of our body that does make us women.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of From One High Goddess to Another. I am Lamika, founder and creator of High Goddess. And this month, this High Goddess is beyond amazing. This is probably the most personal, the most meaningful podcast I have recorded to date. And I am beyond happy. My life is great to have this woman on my podcast. And the amazing woman that I am talking about is Dr. Elizabeth Coronado. Dr. Coronado, how are you?
I'm great. How are you? Thank you.
Great.
That is so sweet.
Yes. Before we jump into the good stuff, go ahead and tell us how tall you are and if you played a sport.
I am 5'4.5". Don't leave out the half. And the only sport I played was tennis until Coach Hedges told my mom to stop wasting her money.
I love it. That's okay. That allowed you to become this amazing doctor. So I'm okay that you're not a tennis star. I'm completely fine with that. So I know everybody is like, oh my God, she's 5'4.5". I thought this podcast was for tall women. It is for all women. And Dr. Coronado exudes height goddess energy. I was telling you the other day that I didn't even realize you were 5'4". I thought you were like 5'9". I was probably so delusional that I just didn't realize
You felt me coming in the room big?
Exactly, I did. I'll get right into it. You are a OB-GYN, is that correct?
That's right.
Okay, so what made you decide to become an OB-GYN?
You know, a lot of people ask, so interestingly, my Uber driver today asked me what that even was, which I thought was cute because he was a dude. So an OB-GYN is a doctor that takes care of almost all the aspects of women's health. People know us best because I deliver babies, but I also do a lot of surgery and help women in the office. Most of that comes from just my fascination with the science behind how women's bodies work. But really, at the end of the day, I get to talk to girls all day. That's the best part of my job. I'm a huge extrovert. I love to talk. I never want to be alone. And so I literally just get girl talk all day long.
That's awesome. I mean, it sounds like you are in the perfect spot. As I said in the beginning, Dr. Coronado is my OB-GYN. And one of the reasons why I wanted to have her on the podcast is, you know, we're in the summertime. July was Fibroid Awareness Month. And I've known that I had fibroids for quite a while, probably at least 15 years. However, they did not start giving me problems until, symptoms within the last probably 3.5 years. And so by the time I got to Dr. Coronado, I had been in tears. I had been to several doctors, and probably a year to the date that I came and I saw you, I probably was sitting in a car in tears just a year prior to finding you because I had not found the right OB-GYN. And so I am glad that I kept searching, and that is why I wanted to talk to you. So like I said, I've known for years that I had fibroids. What is the earliest age that a woman should receive an evaluation for fibroids?
That's a great question. We don't usually evaluate a woman specifically for fibroids unless they're having heavy menstrual cycles or some kind of symptom that would make us do an ultrasound, right? It's an ultrasound of the pelvis. I would certainly never recommend that to a teen or even anyone with no problems in their 20s. You know, if somebody's got a strong family history or suspicion, it's always easy enough to order that ultrasound. But part of that also comes with, okay, well, what are we going to do about it? Like, if we find it, what are we really going to do about it? We're not going to do surgery on someone unless they're having problems or symptoms.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I mean, that's essentially how I was. When I first found out about it, I was like, hey, it's not causing me any problems. I'm going to leave it alone. I completely get that. When someone does receive that diagnosis of they have fibroids, what should they do?
let's talk for a minute. What are fibroids? Which they're tumors in the muscle wall of the uterus. The uterus is the womb, or the place where periods come from, and the place where babies grow. Those tumors can create heavy menstrual cycles, but they also can create complications with future pregnancies. Mm-hmm. So we sort of evaluate the size. There are a lot of women out there, half of women have fibroids. And there are a lot of women out there that have really small ones that aren't causing them problems. Mm-hmm. And I say, you can keep them. You keep your fibroids, you're fine. But then when we start to see people these tumors are growing, and they're not usually cancerous, only 1 in 10,000 fibroid tumors is cancerous. So that's a really low number. But if we see somebody in whom they're growing rapidly, or they're getting large enough where they're causing symptoms, problems, pain, pressure, then we start talking about, are you a candidate for surgery? And then, you well know my expertise is robotic surgery. Mm-hmm. So taking out big tumors through teeny tiny holes. Mm-hmm. And that's what we try to do to catch somebody in a window where they have symptoms, but she's still a candidate for teeny tiny hole surgery because it's a lot less difficult for her body to recover.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and that makes total sense. So one of the things that I really loved about when I came to you after going to several doctors was the openness to talk about what I wanted versus you as a surgeon, what you wanted to do. That was huge for me, the choices, the options that were there. It seems like 1 in 3 hysterectomies are due to fibroids. If fibroids aren't cancerous, why remove the uterus?
Well, there are 2 surgical procedures that can be done for, really 3 surgical procedures that can be done for fibroids. One of them involves kind of shrinking by melting, mm-hmm. and that's called an ablation of the fibroid, or an excessa procedure. 2 is to go in and remove the individual fibroids, and 3 is to remove the uterus. Mm-hmm. Removing the fibroids is a riskier surgery, a bloodier surgery, and you still have the risk that the fibroids are going to grow back. So if somebody's done with their uterus, they're done having their babies, they don't need that womb anymore for making babies, then a hysterectomy is often a better option because it's safer and it's 100% happy face. I can tell somebody, or it's not, I'll tell you 99.5% happy face, because you're not going to have any periods mm-hmm. anymore, mm-hmm. and there's no chance a fibroid could grow back.
Got it. Okay, that makes total sense, because obviously that was my concern, because I tell people I had no desire to have kids. That was not an option for me, or it was an option, but it wasn't one that I wanted until it became, hey, you can get rid of uterus. I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. Maybe I do want to have kids.
You just don't want to shut down the option.
Exactly.
That's what I tell people. I don't want to be the end of your option unless you were already done with that option.
Right. Absolutely. And that makes total sense. With the uterus being a hormone regulating organ, is it important to keep it for those purposes other than just having a baby?
So when we do hysterectomies, typically we do a partial hysterectomy. And what that means is that we leave the ovaries. I teach young girls this class on their parts, their body parts, and we used to call it OMG, what's happening to me? And it's about periods and parts and puberty, right? Uh-huh. So if you make a Texas Longhorn with your hand, which I went to Texas A&M, so if this sounds a little bit offensive to the Longhorns, I apologize. Then the uterus is your actual hand, the Longhorn's head, but the ovaries are out on the Longhorn's ears, on the Longhorn's horns.
Okay.
The ovaries are where the hormones come from. The ovaries make the hormones, the estrogen, the progesterone, the testosterone, and we can leave those in place but still remove the uterus without touching hormones.
Got it.
So there's no hormonal change after what we call a partial hysterectomy.
Okay.
So I tell people, listen, if you're in a bad mood once a month, you're still going to be in a bad mood once a month. You're just not going to be bleeding once a month.
That does make a huge difference.
Everybody's mood gets better.
Everybody's mood gets better. No, that makes sense. That illustration of a Longhorn, because I'm a visual person, so seeing that visualization, that makes a big difference. Obviously, prior to coming to you, I've always pretty much had a good diet to where I typically would eat plant-based. Obviously, I do consume meat, not a whole lot. And so I was going the natural route. Are there any food recommendations that you suggest for someone with fibroids and then for someone like me that's fibroid free?
There hasn't been a lot that we've seen that impacts the growth of fibroids. I think that I listen to my patients. I don't just listen to data and studies. I listen to my patients, and patients tell me they feel like maybe their fibroids didn't grow as fast when they were on a plant-based diet because of the lack of that animal protein. But you're not going to see a fibroid shrink or go away based on anything in the diet. And a lot of these women that are having heavy menstrual cycles or heavy periods need the iron. So that's the key with a plant-based diet is making sure we're getting enough iron in there.
Oh, yeah. I know all about that. I spent Valentine's Day of 2020 in the hospital because I needed that. So I completely get that. That makes total sense. So for someone who's looking for a doctor, what are your suggestions? I know for me, I was a part of a women's group, and I just so happened to go back to my trainer. He's been my trainer for probably at least 15 years. And in, I think, October of last year, I went back to work out with him. And he was like, "What's wrong? Like, you can barely pick your feet up." I was like, dude. I am struggling over here. There were days where I'm like, I can't jump rope. I can barely pick my feet up. And there were certain exercises that I wasn't able to do because I felt like my breasts it was in my chest.
We're getting pushed up by the big uterus. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm like, I cannot breathe. So I'm actually glad that I went back to work out with him because one of the ladies that was also one of his clients, she was like, hey, he was like, I have another client that had the same situation. He reached out to her that day. She was like, hey, I have a fantastic doctor. You need to reach out to her. That doctor was you. And so that's actually how I got to you, was just through talking to people. But for someone that may not, I guess, have that connection or, may not be as comfortable talking about it, how do you suggest they go about finding a solution for themselves or finding a doctor for themselves?
So I think when we're looking for a doctor, it's important to understand that there are a lot of variations in people's skill set as it relates to fibroid surgery. Unfortunately, there are actually very few really skilled surgeons at doing minimally invasive or tiny hole surgery to remove fibroids. You've got more surgeons that are comfortable with doing hysterectomies for fibroids, but unfortunately, in the United States, about half of women still end up with an open incision for a hysterectomy. That means like either an up and down incision or a C-section bikini incision. Half of women. Now, I surgery referrals all day, and I probably do 2% of my surgeries open. So that's a very big difference. And to me, that's a key indicator is how much surgery does this person do? How often are they doing surgery for fibroids or other female issues? And what is their percent of minimally invasive rate? Like, what is their minimally invasive rate? How much percentage of their surgeries are they doing through small incisions, whether robotic or laparoscopic? The vast majority of us do it robotically now. And not laparoscopically, just because the robot makes it a bit simpler and, in my hands at least, a bit safer. I'm not saying that for other people's hands. And then you want to ask about complication rate. You want a confident surgeon. I can look you in the eye and tell you that my complication rate is lower than average. And that's because I have a volume that is triple, quadruple the average OB-GYN, because this is just a niche that I've worked my way into by the blessing of patients like yourself talking to their trainer about it and the patient who referred you on to me. Now, while we're on the subject, I probably need the personal trainer's name because I have not done any of that lately, and it's not because I have fibroids.
Well, I'll say the last time I saw you, you looked great. So
Thank you.
I know, because I told my mom, I was like, she looks amazing. So you looked great. But I'll definitely give you that referral.
Thank you. Thank you. Pass that along.
Yes. So I know I told him, I was like, you got 90 days to get me back in shape. I don't have these fibroids as an excuse anymore. It is time to get back into shape.
Tell him I'm coming his way. I got 90 days too.
Exactly. I mean, that does make a huge difference. And I know for me I was like, okay, I'm going to deal with this because I don't know if I want a big stomach or if I want to see scars. I mean, as vain as it may sound.
No, I get it.
Up until I never had surgery before. I never spent a night in the hospital before. So, I mean, there were tears before rolling me in.
You know, I had a lady who does bodybuilding contests, right? She was from another country, and I get the opportunity to work on several people from other countries that really do a lot of research. Mm-hmm. And I've had a plastic surgeon come in, and I've worked with him. He's worked with me. He's watched me sew my incisions up. He's watched me sew my belly buttons up. And I'm going to tell you, I leave people I feel proud about the work I do there.
You should.
But I've committed myself to trying to do it as cosmetically as possible with as safe of a surgery as possible. Safety is the ultimate goal.
Absolutely.
But yeah, none of us want to see big incisions and the scar tissue that leaves us with, both internal and external.
Right. I mean, that was the thing for me. And so I finally verbalized it. My mom was like, is that what you're worried about? I was like, well, that's one of the things that I'm worried about. But I will say that you did an amazing job. I was like, oh my God, what am I getting ready to see? I don't know. You know, that was the biggest thing for me. So knowing that as a piece of it, it all came together when I found you. And, you know, I'm so thankful for being able to make that connection. But I did a lot of research. Like I said, it probably took me 3 years and several doctors before I got to you. And, you know, I was very excited about it, very nervous, but I'm very glad that I was able to do that. You know, me being, you know, going through my own experience, is there anything else that women should know about uterine fibroids and finding a doctor?
I think that the one thing I want to touch on is just finding somebody that you feel comfortable with. In the earlier part of my career, I probably half, maybe 40% of my surgeries were open and not minimally invasive, especially before I was introduced to robotic surgery. Mm-hmm. But I still had a connection with my patients that they felt safe in my hands. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So at the end of the day, you know, you want a doctor that you feel safe with, that you feel comfortable with, that you know is listening to you. Mm-hmm. You know that they're on your team. If you're going into surgery, you need the peace of knowing we're on the same team and the team is for my safety and my results.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I definitely felt that with you. I'm typically not a crier, but I was definitely a crier the first time. And I'm not a hugger. And I cried and gave you a hug. I was like, I know this is the right person. That's definitely it. You know, like I said, after going through meeting several doctors, that comfort level was definitely there and very appreciative of that. So switching gears a little bit, being a surgeon, like I said, the last time I saw you, you looked fabulous. What's your style like? I mean, you're busy.
I'm busy. I'm 45 years old. I am recently divorced. I'm living a new life of single mom. I'm in the treacherous waters of raising teenagers. I have 14-year-old twins and a 9-year-old and 2 dogs, one of whom is very bad. So I have, over the years, done a better job of holding boundaries. So one of the most important things, as far as just promoting my family life and kind of mental wholeness, like mental well-being, is to have boundaries. You can't work all the time, no matter how much you love your work, especially with babies delivering in the middle of the night. I think that my style is that when I'm at work, I love it and I'm there and I'm 100% there. And I have great help taking care of my kids and a lot of love that surrounds my kids. But when I'm with my family, I'm dedicated to my family, or with my friends, I'm dedicated to my friends. But I don't sleep that much. So that's part of it.
Yeah, I would only imagine, because my friends tease me that, especially my family, they're like, when Lamika gets sleepy, she goes to sleep. It does not matter what else needs to be done. I'm going to sleep. So I definitely could not be that person that needs to be to deliver someone in the middle of the night. It would not happen. So I get it. Being a successful surgeon, what is your favorite success quote? I'm a big affirmations person, okay? And I travel a lot. I travel and I take my little eraser, markers, and I write on my mirrors, and it may be the goal I'm trying to accomplish, or it may be an affirmation or something like that. So is there something that inspires you, that you tell yourself, a mantra or anything like that that you have for yourself?
You know, I've heard before, and this is almost a joke or a meme, but I've heard before, behind every successful woman is a great group text.
Yes.
And I will tell you that my 7 best friends from medical school, along with many other great friends and supporters that I have, but this particular group of 8 women, all of whom are physicians, our group text never pauses. It never stops, not for a day of the year. There's no day that goes without text. And the support and encouragement of those women who also are in the same field, who are going through the same challenges in personal life and mothering and marriage, all the things, I would say that to me is a great foundation for my success. And the goals that I'm going for are just to be a better version of what I was today, to do it better tomorrow. Mm-hmm. I'm also a deeply spiritual person, and I tell people I'm never going into that operating room or even that examination room by myself. I'm never going in without the guidance of, in my words, God.
Absolutely. I mean, that makes a world of difference, because my mom was like, can we pray? I'm like, yes, can we pray? Because those are small things that can have a huge impact when you're thinking of the overall thing. So is there anything else that you want to share with our listeners and want to tell them how they can find you?
You know, I just want to share with all of the women that are trying to be better versions of themselves to respect and love these parts of our body, right? We make jokes our whole lives from puberty on about what a pain menstrual cycles are, pregnancy, it's so painful, or maybe I don't want to get pregnant. Why did I have to go through this? And I think that it's important to appreciate this unique piece of our body that does make us women, that does bring us down sometimes. But I think understanding the science behind that helps us kind of understand the miracle of how that works. Mm-hmm. Respect your body, respect your parts, and make sure you use them the right way.
I 100% agree with that. Completely agree with that. Like I said, Dr. Coronado, you have been an amazing blessing in my life. And I'm very thankful that, I go back and I look at things and I'm just like, how did this happen? And I'm, just so thankful for the things that come together and in the timing that they do come together. So your website, can you tell the listeners what your website is?
Sure. Yeah. And Lamika, I want to tell you that you've been a huge blessing to me also, and your mom. Thank you. And thank you for having me here today. My website is OB-GYNplano.com. Plano is a suburb of Dallas. And my YouTube has a ton of informational videos, a lot of interesting videos. And it's just my name, Elizabeth Coronado, MD.
Okay.
You got to put the MD on there. But lots of information about fibroids and videos of robotic surgery. I'm fortunate that I get to teach new robotic surgeons as they're starting their robotic surgery career. So I have a lot of videos there for teaching as well.
Yes, those videos are very, very, very helpful. I have watched them several times. Yes, those videos are definitely helpful. Definitely check out Dr. Coronado's YouTube, those videos. That's very informational. So guys, I appreciate you listening to another episode of From One High Goddess to Another. I enjoyed this. Like I said, this is probably the most personal one that I've had. Very thankful to be able to bring you guys this information. And I hope you're able to get the relief that I was able to get and find an amazing doctor. If it's not Dr. Coronado, I hope that you're able to find an amazing doctor that fits what you need. Until next month, I appreciate you guys listening, and peace.